How does Auburn stack up in the NIL world? Who could be a breakout football star next year? And how do you replace Johni Broome? It's time for another Barn Takeover.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie 5.
Yes, sir, we're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie 5, and we are ready to get after it. It's my favorite part of the week. It's time for another Barn Takeover where we take questions from the barnauburn.com. I put the mailbag out, they fill it up, and then we dive in and have some fun. If you want to be a part of it, obviously you can subscribe to the barnauburn.com and save big as you take $25 off your annual membership. Before we jump into those, you know we got to give a shout out to Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. Use coupon code TheBarn25 to take 25% off your order. If you live in the state of Alabama, you can go to any Publix. If you live in the Birmingham area, you can go to Publix and any Piggly Wiggly. If you don't live close to any one of those, you can go to the website at UncleKeithsRedSauce.com. If you love salsa with a little southern kick, you need to give it a try. Auburn family, Auburn fans, show them some love. Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. It's good, y'all. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into it. I think this is going to be a fun bunch of good questions. Grizzly Adam 16, another message board legend. Biggest concern for a position group going into the spring. It's funny he asked this because I'm literally going position group by position group. If you've been listening over the past several days, we've just about finished up. I think we finished up the defense. Now we're moving to offense, and I think as I look into it, the two position groups that I'm most concerned about are running back and linebacker. And it's not so much that I'm necessarily concerned about the top level of talent, having the SEC talent, as it is just it's an unknown. It's unproven. Who's going to be the middle linebacker? You've had Eugene Asante for a couple of years. You've had Austin Keys for a couple of years. Is Robert Woodyard going to step up? Do you have to go to the portal in spring to find a more veteran middle linebacker? Golly, there's some talent, though. There's some really good talent. I think Robert Woodyard could be the guy. I really do. He showed some flashes last year, and I talked about it in that episode. And then running back. Yeah, you had Damari Alston, got a good bit of touches last year. Jeremiah Cobb didn't probably get the touches that he would have liked. Which one of those guys steps up? And then you got Darrell Robinson in the mix. Another guy who was not a feature back, but he was really young and has, some really good skills. You just don't know with that group, with those two groups. But the talent's there from a recruiting standpoint. You look at the rankings of the guys in both of those spots, both of those position groups, you got potential there. So that's what I'm going with. Running back and linebacker, probably more concerned about running back than I am linebacker. It's a good question. Brian Beatty, in the NIL world, it seems money will go a long way in determining who has the most success. What is a realistic expectation for where Auburn stacks up? Top 5, top 10, top 25? I think you got to look at NIL in you have to look at NIL in multiple different ways, okay? Like, what determines success? Is it just total payroll? If it's just total payroll, I mean, Auburn's definitely going to be, a top 15, but probably not a, top 10 or top 5. If you look at efficiency, you could probably argue if you can get results on the field, you could maybe be a little bit closer to the top 5, top 10. I think as far as money goes, revenue sharing is going to change a good bit because it brings into play money that maybe wasn't there to begin with. A little extra money, but it does that for everybody. So to me, NIL is not going to be quite as important to me as the general manager and the off the field recruiting staff is going to be. Because I think for the most part, the playing field is going to be a little bit more level. I think you'll still have some, You'll still have some collective stuff that they'll do, and there'll still be some deals outside of just revenue sharing. But with the arbitration and having to justify every deal and the value of every deal, it's going to be tougher and tougher. So I think currently, you just look at the articles that came out about how Auburn spent in the portal this past offseason, top, 3 or 4 teams in the country as far as spending in the portal. You look at the recruiting rankings, Auburn had one of the top recruiting classes and one of the top portal classes. So the spending obviously is there. You're very competitive there. And then you look at retention. So I would say from an NIL perspective, Auburn's probably way up there from football. Basketball, again, look at the results on the field or on the court, I guess. Does Auburn have one of the top payrolls in the country? No. Does Auburn have one of the top payrolls in the SEC? Probably not. Does total money spent always equal success? The answer is no. So what are you getting and what are you seeing on the court? I think Auburn is fine in NIL for basketball. You hear a lot of different things. I think people try to equate spending to success, and I just don't think that's the case. Are you smart with your money? Do you have the money to compete for the big guys? But then are you smart with it? I think Auburn has always had one of the top collectives as far as transparency goes and just organization in general. So hope that answered your question. I went a bunch of different directions there. I'm going to Disney this week, so there's a couple of Disney questions that we're going to dig through. D. Moultrie, will you be wearing Mickey ears this week? If so, obviously we need a picture. What's your favorite Disney ride? What's your least favorite Disney ride? So we're taking the kids on spring break to Disney. I will not be wearing Mickey ears, but I may get a picture anyway. So we'll just be on the lookout for that. What's my favorite Disney ride? So I've only been to Disney probably like twice my whole life. So I'm not one of the OG Disney guys that like you go to Disney all the time and you have a ton of favorite rides and things like that. I've only been, maybe 2 or 3 times. I just got to go Splash Mountain. Splash Mountain, it's got different names now. So I don't even know what the new name is, but that's a safe one, I think. Space Mountain's up there too. Least favorite Disney ride? I mean, It's a Small World is god-awful. Peter Pan is god-awful. Standing in line for those is, boy, oh boy, what a disappointment. There's a lot of little kiddie stuff that, boy, people just sit in line for hours for, especially in Magic Kingdom. So there's my answer for that one. And follow that up. Who would be your starting 5 of Disney characters if you were putting together a basketball team? Well, look, Goofy's got to be your big man. Goofy's the big man. I'm only going with just your traditional characters. I'm not going to go, I could go through Marvel. I could go through Star Wars. We could be here all day, but I'm just going to go the classic one. Goofy's your 5 for sure. Got the length. He can make it happen. Pete, I'm going to go Pete as your power 4 enforcer. Yeah, I think I like that. Mickey and Minnie, I think I'll let Minnie run point. I think Mickey could be a really good combo guard. He can do a lot. He can do a lot of different things, and he could play point in a pinch if you get in some foul trouble. I think Mickey could slide over there and play point. The three. I'm going to go. It's going to be more guard than it would be, a small forward, because we're just running out of size. I like my size from Goofy and Pete, so I think I'm going to go with Pluto. I know he's on all 4s, but I just feel like he's got something special he can make happen. So that's what that's my starting 5. Minnie and Mickey rotating at the 1 and the 2. Pluto's my 3 guard, and it's going to be a guard. And then Pete's my 4 power forward, and Goofy's my center. I think that's pretty solid. After Saturday, does CBM still have the majority of the fan base in his corner, or has he lost the majority? I think he still has the majority of the fan base in his corner. I know there's some folks that are being loud, and there's some folks that have a lot to say, and justifiably so, because his actions cost, for the most part, cost you the game. So I can see where people are anxious, mad, upset, but I think ultimately he's such a likable guy that I think the vast majority of the fan base is still in his corner. The team's still in his corner. The coaching staff is still in his corner. And I think that's what we need to do. I think we need to be in his corner. We need to be on his side and don't turn on him if you want to win a championship. So that's how I feel about that. If you want to win a championship, you better be on his side. We're going to jump into some more questions in just a second. But before we do that, we got to give a shout out to mybookie.ag. Use coupon code BARN for a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. The NCAA tournament, SEC tournament, is going on right now. Get that account set up, get that big deposit bonus, and then go win big. Again, coupon code BARN. You give them $100. They're going to give you 50 back in free play to play with. I think they also give you $10 to play with in the casino if you're into that too. So check it out, mybookie.ag. All right. Do you see a Travis Burgess announcement coming anytime soon? If you've been following recruiting at all, Travis Burgess is the quarterback for Grayson High School, won the state championship last year. He seems like Auburn's top quarterback right now. He seems like the top of the board. He mentioned on his last visit when he came for junior day that he planned to come back sometime in March. I think he has an official visit scheduled in May. I would imagine he's going to be here when spring practice starts on Monday. Maybe not on Monday, but once spring practice starts, I imagine he's probably going to visit, if at least once, if not a couple of times. And I think he mentioned he wanted to bring his family in March. That would typically signal maybe there's a commitment on the horizon. I think Auburn would love to go ahead and get this one done. I think they're still evaluating a couple of guys, still looking at Landon Duckworth, the in-state kid from Jackson High School. I think they're still looking at him. So maybe they haven't fully gone all in for a commitment quite yet, but I think Travis is, if I was a betting man, I'd say Travis was the guy. And I doubt it goes much. I doubt it goes beyond this spring, sometime this spring. So soon is relative, I guess. I think it'll be this spring. Your prediction for who will win the Wooden Award? I think Broome deserves it more, but I think they'll give it to Flagg. I think I agree with you, unfortunately. There's just so much Duke bias. And look, I'm not going to pretend Cooper Flagg's like a bum. Like, he's unbelievable. He's going to be the top pick in the draft. He's really, really good. He could probably do more things than Broome, but production-wise, the stats are almost equal. I mean, if you look at points, you look at rebounds, you look at assists, and you combine all those together, they're very, very close as far as averages per game. So you would think if all things are equal, you got to go to level of competition. I mean, Auburn's beaten 10 ranked teams this year. And I think the whole ACC combined has only beaten 7. I don't even know how that's a question. But it does feel like Cooper Flagg's probably going to get it. Broome will need a really big tournament, SEC tournament, and then the first 2 rounds, he'll need some big games there as well. I think he's just got to keep pounding, 20-plus points. Needs to get back in that double-double range. He's been kind of beaten on the boards a little bit the last couple of games. Hadn't had a double-double in a minute, so I think once he gets back on that train, that'll give him a shot. He was SEC Player of the Year. That was a no-brainer. But if I had to guess, I'd probably agree with you and say it's probably going to be Cooper. Your boy George. Who are some candidates to watch to win the unofficial Most Improved and SEC Newcomer of the Year awards within the football team? I thought really long and hard about this. And Newcomer of the Year, I'm going to give it to even though I'm concerned about the running backs, I feel like one of them's going to pop. I don't know which one yet, though. Damari at times looks like the most explosive running back that we had, but he puts the ball on the ground. And I know that could be just some freak stuff, but he's kind of done it every year he's been here. Jeremiah Cobb may not quite have the vision, but he's just as explosive at times as Damari. I feel like I feel like one of those guys could pop. Now, I don't think the style of football is going to necessarily lend it to what we're used to watching, where it's just like pound the running back, pound the running back. I think they're going to put the ball in the air a lot. But I think one of those running backs, I think they have the gifts to pop. And I think newcomer of the year, I'd probably, even though Damari's going to be a senior, he hasn't really been the lead guy. I think either he or Jeremiah Cobb could probably be, one of the newcomers of the year. Another one I have circled is Amaris Williams, and I talked about that a couple of days ago. I think he's the X factor of that defensive line, and I've been hearing that he's sort of been rejuvenated since he went in the portal, came back out of the portal, looking really good. So how do they use him? Well, that'll remain to be seen because, unfortunately, there's a lot of dudes. There's a lot of dudes at pass rush. There's a lot of dudes on the defensive line. You got Keldrick Falk to compete with. But I think newcomer of the year, I'll probably go with one of the running backs or like an Amaris Williams. Crossfire X. This is a really good question. I'm wondering if you've heard anything about potential transfer portal centers to replace Broome that Auburn has their eye on. So specifically, no, I don't have a name. But I do remember back when Walker Kessler was playing so well, and I was looking at what he did that made that offense work so well and how many shots he blocked. And I was like, that's going to be, I think that's going to be kind of what Bruce was looking for. So I just went to like the SEC. I went to like the NCAA stat leaders, and I was trying to look for guys that are, relatively local, close by, that could block shots and could score. And I promise you, I picked out Johni Broome before any of the names popped up. So I think that will probably be a good place to start. Just go find some local guys, that are at a lower school, that have a couple of years left or have a year left, that play good defense and that can score a lot. I've heard a lot about the kid from UAB. I can't remember his name. I think his name's Yaxel Lumberg or something like that. He averages like 17 and 10. He's not a true 5. I think he's like 6'9". I'm not saying that's who it's going to be. He could very well go to the NBA. He's really, really good. But I've heard that, hey, if he doesn't necessarily get the NBA grade that he wants, he could portal, and he's going to be one of the top transfers on the market. So again, could that be a guy? He kind of fits the role, fits the attributes. He's not as big as Johni Broome, but he's a really, really good big man that could play inside, could play outside, shoot some threes. Those are the kind of guys I'd be looking for. You do have a Darren Scott coming back, who I think is going to be your Dylan Cardwell role. He's actually redshirting this year, so that's why you haven't seen him. He's not going to play this year because they want him to come back and be that guy off the bench, bouncy big man who could kind of fill Dylan Cardwell's shoes. It's going to be interesting to see how they actually handle that role. We're going to miss Dylan. We're going to miss what he brings, his 15 minutes a game. And you're hoping you can get something like that out of Darren Scott. Over front, which offensive lineman that is not considered a potential starter as of now is most likely to break through and be a starter by the end of the season? So let's predict right now. Let's just assume your starting lineup is you got Xavier Chaplin at left tackle. That seems like a given. Your left guard, I guess, could be we know your center's Lou. Your center's Connor Lou. Your right guard's probably Jeremiah Wright. Your right tackle, Dylan Wade. How can I forget Dylan Wade? Left tackle, Xavier Chaplin. Left guard, Dylan Wade. Center, Connor Lou. Right guard, Jeremiah Wright. Right tackle, Xavier Too-Tall Miller. So that's probably your starting 5 coming out of the tunnel, coming out of spring or going into spring. Mason Murphy's going to challenge somewhere. I mean, he could challenge at right guard. He could challenge at right tackle. He's one I could easily see as being somebody that jumps. And then you're going to have Braden Joyner too. Braden Joyner apparently got a lot of requests. Let's just call it that, to go in the portal from other schools that said, hey, you could be a starter here. I think the limited time that he got, he really showed that he belongs. It's a great story. He could be one that pushes and gets in there. So Mason Murphy and Braden Joyner, I think, are going to be ones to watch. Feels good to have options, man. Feels good to have a little bit of depth at tackle. And then obviously don't forget about Tyler Johnson. I'll have the whole offensive line show probably next week. But Mason Murphy probably won. The sixth man off the bench, probably Braden number 7 off the bench. I think that's pretty fair. And then last one, I think this is a good one too. Wardam Gunning. What kind of production do you expect to see out of Perry Thompson this season? And as of right this moment, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are the odds of Perry finishing his career at Auburn? Boy, put me on the spot. That one's tough. So it's all going to depend on what this offense looks like. I think they're going to throw it a lot. So there's going to be targets to go around. But Cam Coleman's going to be on one side. Eric Singleton's going to be on the other. And you feel like Malcolm Simmons is going to be right there with him. So where does Perry get involved? It all depends on, to me, that, like, how do you decide? How do you decide how to feature him? Where does he play? Is he going to play in the slot? Is he just going to rotate behind, Cam, or is he going to rotate behind Eric Singleton? Is Eric Singleton going to play more slot? And then when he jumps inside, Perry goes outside? If I had to guess right now, I'd say 400 yards receiving. And I think if he can get that kind of production, I think I'd probably put him staying at Auburn at maybe like a 7.5 or 7, if he can get that kind of production. If it's a season kind of like last year where he can't really see the field, or they can't really figure out how to get him the ball, or he doesn't progress, it'd be tough to keep him. And I don't know that it makes sense either. But I think he's still immensely talented. He looks like a physical freak. He's put in the work in the offseason, and I think he could still be a factor in this offense. And, I listed those guys. I mean, Perry has the measurables and the top-end speed and the athleticism that, hey, he can maybe beat out any of those guys that I just mentioned. Just got to see him do it. How do they use him? I think all that matters. Guys, another great Barn Takeover. If you want to be a part of it, obviously just subscribe to thebarnauburn.com and jump in. We got another feature coming up at the Barn. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm probably going to announce it next week. I put a little feeler out on the message board, and it got a bunch of great feedback, and I think it's going to be something fun, especially for the off season. We'll jump into. So, guys, thanks for listening. If you like the video, like it. If you like the channel, subscribe to it. Don't forget to go to mybookie.ag. Use coupon code BARN to get that 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. And, hey, if you need a real estate agent in the Auburn area, give me a shout. You can hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Instagram, or email me at krush@thekeyagency.realestate. No matter if you want to buy, sell, build, or invest, I'm your guy, so give me a shout. I'd love to help you and your family. And then we'll be back again tomorrow. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.